Sometimes it takes only one small step to open up a 1,000-mile perspective. The Nord Stream race took its first step 8 years ago, immediately gaining the status of the longest in the Baltic, tracing its way along the route of the eponymous gas pipeline. The idea attracted the strongest crews in Europe, and only the best teams from the countries along the pipeline route took part in the regatta.
И идея очень простая, что
The idea is very simple. The Nord Stream, our gas pipeline from Russia to Germany, unites Europe. Champions of their respective national sailing leagues from the previous year, 5 strong teams earned their right to start the offshore race from the city of Kiel in Germany. Next, the fabulous Copenhagen with its Little Mermaid awaited the yachtsmen. And then there was the most difficult and incredibly exhausting 400-mile leg to Stockholm. Taking a moment to draw breath, the teams sailed on towards the unique and atmospheric Helsinki, and from there to St. Petersburg, which for a number of years has already been established as the finish line for the Nord Stream race. The regatta format combines inshore and offshore races. After all, if the best of the best have already risen under the flags of their own countries, this is the only way to reveal the strongest one. The 18th of October 2012 can be considered the birthday of the Nord Stream race. It was on that day that the first leg of the very first regatta began. The leg from St. Petersburg to Helsinki was won by the Russian yacht Regatta, which also took the overall victory after a long, hard struggle. Many incredible events happened in subsequent editions. In 2013, having covered almost 1,000 miles, victory was determined by just 26 seconds. A year later, the Chinese crew decided to try their hand at competing in the harsh Baltic winds. Year on year, not only did the regatta throw up surprise after surprise, but it also strengthened its position as the preeminent race in the Baltic Sea. The final crew selection procedure, as well as the conditions for internal selection, were formed in 2017. That was also the year that the Nord Stream race combined forces with the largest sailing festival in the world, Kiel Week. The project had made a major breakthrough in just 5 years, having earned its place among the most significant regattas in Europe. The arrival of the Nord Stream race fleet and the first inshore races took place at the beginning of Kiel Week. Dramatic races between majestic swan yachts became the highlight of the opening of Kielerwoche. In most cases, the winners of the inshore races formed the backbone of each of the crews, for it is in this format that the national sailing leagues are held. Nevertheless, while in league regattas the team consists of only 4 people, the Swan Yacht requires a crew of 10 yachtsmen, and the process of selection is very important for the final victory. In 2019, the Leviathan team represented Russia at the Nord Stream race. Among the Russian crew, the Sheremetyev brothers were the most experienced. My grandmother was a sailing coach, Sheremeteva Galina Sergeyevna. Dad was, and still is, a boat captain. Since we were kids, we were always hanging around in the yacht club. Probably the first time I got on a yacht was when I was just 7 or 8 years old.
Я помню, когда только начинали, было очень страшно.
I remember when we started, it was really scary. It was in an Optimist class dinghy. The wind was blowing hard that day in Anapa. The coach made us go and everyone was afraid. To avoid doing the next race, I actually unscrewed my sheet block and came home saying that I cannot continue. But the coach, without hesitation, gave me a new sheet block and sent me back out again. Then we got Semenov Sergei Vasilievich as our coach in a well-coordinated Optimist class team. It was only just emerging. There were 2 or 3 kids, and then we really hit our stride. We shared our experience with others, of course, and we still do. Someone learns something, does something, develops faster.
Мы показали хороший результат у
We
оптимиста.
put in a good result in the Optimist and moved to the 470 Olympic dinghy. I tried this class at the age of 15 as an experiment and quickly got hooked. We started to look pretty good, and then came the Olympics.
Я больше всего боялся уходить из
I was afraid to quit the Olympic circuit because I thought that beyond the Olympics, sailing does not even exist. However, as it turned out, in other types of sailing, there is no less work, no less fun. The other professionals who left the Olympics a little earlier than us, they are all here.
В этом спорте
This sport demands almost every human quality: strong psychology, physical strength, and so on. Every day at work on a boat is enjoyable. Moreover, every day is different.
потому что я себе
That is why I cannot imagine myself in any other place, even if I was offered a lot of money. I cannot work anywhere except on the sea. Leviathan, even with such experienced fighters as the Sheremetevs, had an average start to the regatta. Inshore races in Kiel provided an opportunity for the crews to find their rhythm. The Swedes, who won the prologue, were fastest to find theirs. After the Swedes came the Germans, and only then the Leviathan team. However, the inshore races in Kiel were effectively a free practice, and it's clear that the main struggle was still ahead. It was far too early to be writing off any of the teams quite yet.
сегодня достаточно достойно.
Today, I think we performed well. The problems were that we did not have enough time to practice. The team was a little late for the first training session, so we only had one day out. Today, in fact, was just the second. Nevertheless, the guys did well. We will improve. The very next evening, the first offshore race commenced, the starting gun being fired by none other than former German Chancellor, Mr. Gerhard Schröder. It was a short but emotional departure with its own twist. The fleet covered 150 miles on the shortest night of the year. The sun doesn't set in the Baltic at this time, and the teams did not see the stars for the whole 24 hours they were at sea. In a bitter struggle, when the yacht sailed all the way bow to bow, sensing the approach of their home waters, the Danish team made their move and crossed in first place.
Если задаться целью найти сердце яхты,
If you ask yourself to find the heart of a yacht, then it is here, at the workplace of the key person on the team on whom 60% of the race's outcome depends, win or lose. Meet Peter Vara, captain of the Royal Danish Yacht Club crew. With a flick of the wrist, Peter can change the course of any race by 180 degrees, and he has done it more than once in his career.
And Russia was in the lead for the substantial lead for the last part of the race. We caught up with them, we fight it for a long time side by side, and finally we pulled away from them, and again we came to Copenhagen. And when you're sleeping in this boat, you're sitting with your legs out here and you're hanging with your head out here. So you sit and sleep like this with your hands up in your face. Thank you very much, and thanks for a very good match with the Russian team, especially.
Peter Vara is a true Danish sailing legend. At the dawn of his career more than 50 years ago, he twice became the world champion in the Optimist class. He has a huge number of victories in various regattas. His son Jonas became Olympic champion in the 49er skiff class in Beijing 2008.
Well, that was a family thing, and my dad used to be an international top sailor in the Dragon class, and we lived at a Danish fjord. So I sneaked out of the house and started sailing before I was allowed by my parents. Of 12, 13 years old, I went to 4 world championships in Finland, in France, in Austria, and in Miami. When we went to Miami, we flew in over Iceland to New York, and we took the bus from New York to Miami. over 3 days. So imagine an experience for the young kids of Scandinavia to suddenly be in the deep south. So I didn't go very aggressively on from the Optimist, but I went into sailing, OK dinghy, laser, 470, some local boats in Denmark, eventually some Kiel boats, and I've been sailing 10 years of Dragon. I've been sailing almost 10 years of the Melgis 24, an absolutely fantastic boat. It's a fantastic challenge, and I'm not very experienced in this type of boat. I haven't been sailing much big boat offshore. I've been more on small courses close to shore. But we've put together an interesting team of young guns from Olympic classes, and now we've been practicing here in the last 2 days, and it seems to grow and be better and better, but it certainly is a big challenge.
Peter's experience helped the Danes to win the first start in the Copenhagen inshore racing. But then the Leviathan's secret weapon changed everything.
Привезли ребят с опытом offshore.
We brought guys with experience in offshore racing. This year they raced Sydney Hobart. Last year, Fastnet. This is the quality of people we have on our crew. A good start, then turn and take the mark first or second. Everything was classic offshore sailing here. Well, let's cheer the wonderful Leviathan team who will be the first to finish this race. Just great, brilliant, brilliant finish. The crew rotation had a positive effect on the Leviathan performance, and the results of the Russian team improved throughout the competition. Third in Kiel, second in the offshore in Copenhagen, and finally their first victory.
Пока их смены готовятся к очередному...
While yachtsmen are preparing for the next offshore leg, it is very pleasant to wander through the streets of Copenhagen. By the way, Denmark is one of the main Baltic yacht capitals. There are almost 150 yacht clubs in this country, and about a dozen of those are in Copenhagen. However, the teams had no time to admire the attractions of the Danish capital. The most severe and longest leg awaited the Nord Stream race participants. The Copenhagen to Stockholm leg of the race.
It was a bit hard, especially towards the end. So, I mean, it was a long race. So we went practically through all conditions you can think of. And then the wind died, and everybody was like, at one point we even lost steerage because we were just floating around in all these big waves. Even though the Russian had the better hand of us in the start, we got back and we got past them.
400 miles of intense struggle over the course of 40 hours tested the teams to the limit, and as on the previous leg, the Russians were competitive from the very start. Again, during the course of the race, the team could not hold on to its advantage, arriving in Stockholm only third. Meanwhile, the capital of Sweden welcomed its winners. The Swedish team, despite all the regalia and long tradition of the Royal Swedish Yacht Club, was the youngest crew and the most effervescent during the course of the regatta. The credit in creating a relaxed atmosphere on this yacht is largely down to two girls, Sandra Sandquist and Cecilia Johnson. These girls were not there just to make up the numbers though, not just ballast on a yacht. Cecilia already had experience in the Nord Stream race, having covered the entire route last year. Sandra was the team's tactician in this regatta, which comes as no surprise to anyone who knows her background. Previously, she raced as part of the Swedish Artemis team at the America's Cup. She was the Vice World Champion in the Optimus class and the European Champion in the Europe class. At the Nord Stream race, even after the most difficult leg, the girls remained cheerful and ready to find an activity for everyone.
Ну что ж, сегодня я наш...
Well, today I'm on a Swedish boat and we will finally try to find a use for me. Well friends, even in such a simple role as it would appear to be with just a rope and a winch, you can actually make so many mistakes that you can still lose the race. Therefore, victory or loss depends on each person here, even for the one who just sits on the side of the boat. Now we're going to try for real to hike out as hard as we can. I will hike along with the girls, try to learn how we can do it. Put down the microphone, let's go! Thanks. See ya. The inshore races in Stockholm have just ended. The finish was right in the heart of the city. Unfortunately, the Russian crew took only third place. The Swedes won, but home waters often help, of course. At the time this video was being recorded, the Swedish team was essentially completing a golden double at their home leg of the regatta. The victory in inshore races brought Tre Krona to first place in the overall standings, but after the Finnish team filed a protest which was upheld. As a result, the Swedes were disqualified and the Russians were elevated to first overall.
Yes, we are going to protest against Sweden, because in the downwind mark we came first, and we were rounding that mark, and Sweden didn't have room there. We were entitled to go first around the mark. They did it wrong over there, and we have to avoid to make a huge collision over there.
Well, we have different opinions on what's happened, but it's going to be very interesting when we come to the next stopover to see what's going to happen with that one.
At the halfway point, the Nord Stream race was spinning intrigue to the limit. Leviathan was first. The Danes were only 2 points behind. The Swedes, after disqualification, fell to third place and lost 3 points to Russia.
Not attentive enough in these two situations, and we did a couple of mistakes, so we broached, but that was not the reason why we lost our second place. Our positioning was not quite beneficial when the light came on. We lacked a little speed once in a while too.
Well, basically it was one of the ropes that keeps the Jenniker down, so the tack line broke, and it took us a long time to fix a new one and prepare everything. So on.
Today, everyone was tested to the limit. We had about 10 broaches. It was very difficult, but very exciting. Our speed reached 22 knots. I have never sailed a yacht at such a speed. This is the first time in my life. The offshore leg, Stockholm to Helsinki, would prove to be decisive for the entire regatta. The race turned out to be dynamic and extreme, with a fresh wind of 22 to 25 knots reaching 30-knot gusts. Under such conditions, the Russians managed to strengthen their position. If you follow the patterns of the regatta this year, the Finnish team was supposed to reach their home waters first. But everything went wrong for Suomi. Finland has a long sailing tradition, but paradoxical as it sounds, Suomi has only 2 Olympic golds. Even at their home Olympics in 1952, the host team managed only 1 bronze. But sailing is still incredibly popular here. Thousands of yachts, excellent infrastructure, and as they say, both old and young involved. In the Nord Stream race, Finland is represented by a helmsman who is fully engaged in amateur sailing. Mikko Tilika is a well-known lawyer in Finland. The owner of the X45 yacht has assembled one of the youngest teams in this regatta. More than half of his crew are under 30 years old.
Yes, it's a very young team, and they have enjoyed a lot too. It has been very educational for them, and some of them have never sailed offshore races before, and this is the first time they are sailing offshore racing, and they have enjoyed it. it's a huge experience if you have never done it before.
In the final inshore leg, the Finnish team failed to please their fans. For other crews, the stakes were too high, and 3 competitors for an overall victory gave their very best. To guarantee first place in the inshore race standings, Leviathan needed to finish no lower than second. The Russians exceeded the plan without losing a single start off the coast of Helsinki. Very tired but very satisfied. Pleasant fatigue. This is the most important thing. Before the last offshore leg, not only the overall standings but also bronze medal chances were at stake. Apparently the Swedish crew were crippled by the disqualification in their home waters. Tre Kronor dropped down the rankings, while the German team immediately took advantage of the situation to move up a place. The Bundes team gathered very experienced sailors for the trip. The skipper, Sven-Erik Horsch, who had chased the Nord Stream race more than once, and Christian Heermann, a Volvo ocean race navigator. But in the course of the regatta, the German team, realising that not everything was going to plan, made a few changes to the crew.
I'm Niklas. I'm skipper.
I am the skipper on the leg from Stockholm to St. Petersburg, but at the same time I'm not on the wheel, as is usual in sailing. I do tactics and help with manoeuvres. Now there is a trend in sailing for everyone to start at a young age. I'm 31, so I can't exactly say that I'm such a young racer. Part of the crew specialises in ocean racing, including Atlantic crossings. I myself have come this way. These boats, the Club Swan 50, have many sporting elements that make them exciting to sail, and they are very interesting to take offshore. Before the final leg, the point situation for the offshore standings pretty much mirrored the situation with the inshore standings. The Russians, in order to guarantee a top place in the overall standings, needed to finish at least second. The Danes needed to win and wait for the Leviathan team to make a mistake. All our team needed to do to win the overall standings was not to come last.
Последние несколько лет.
Over the past few years, the Nord Stream race has finished in the waters of St. Petersburg. Having already become a strong tradition, the arrival in the great Russian city has become the culmination of the offshore and inshore races as the Nord Stream race follows the route of the Nord Stream gas pipeline in the Baltic. With almost 1,000 miles of sailing already complete, the best teams, winners of their national sailing leagues in Russia, Germany, Sweden, Denmark and Finland, decided to leave the final showdown to the very end of the regatta in order to decide the final outcome on the doorstep of the world's first yacht club. The path from Helsinki to St. Petersburg was extreme. For 14 hours, the teams fought not only with each other, but with ever-changing weather conditions. All 14 hours, the competition remained extremely close. At some point, the Russians made a mistake and fell back to last position, while the Danes took the lead. Still, Leviathan, after some incredible effort by the crew to make up the lost ground, was able to finish with a much-needed second place. Already close to St. Petersburg, the Danes unexpectedly missed the finish line and left the way clear for Leviathan to cross the finish line in first. Later, after the protest, the results were revised and the team of Peter Vara regained victory in this race. Nevertheless, that was not important to the overall outcome. The Russians, even with a second place finish, won both scorings and became first overall. On the shore, after overcoming a 1,000-mile passage from Kiel, those emotions came pouring out.
So we're very happy, and we proved today that we were the fastest, and we are inshore sailors, we are small boat sailors, and finally we can say we can do it offshore too.
There were so many broaches that you can't remember all of them. Almost every manoeuvre was a broach. We raced for more than a day and again finished within 5 to 10 minutes of each other. This shows just how high the level is for all the crews here.
It's been a fantastic roller coaster. I'm so proud of the team, and we all pushed together so well and kept positive and kept pushing, and Yeah, it's overwhelming. It's fantastic to be here in St. Petersburg. It's beautiful. It's the first time in Russia.
В общем, показали.
Generally, we showed what we can and we learned something new. Swan yachts are named after a bird. In our case, a love for the sea. It was this passion for sailing, for the sea, that united 50 people and 5 proud birds, which conquered the Baltic. The champions of Nord Stream Race 2019.